Sorry, Revolution. No, I need to be up, right? Oh, it is. It's on the photo. That's not the better now. Yeah. It's good. It's good.
Dark here for the light because of the but unless he get it from that angle.
Good morning, everybody. So sorry for the delay. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Megan Nguyen, and I'm honored to serve as your Secretary General for the 6th Annual Intergenerational Mali United Nations. So, formally, I'd like to welcome you all. This year's conference is very special because the focus of the conference is around the UN Sustainable Development Goals, also known as the global goals, which many of you are familiar with because the topics that we've selected are based on the global goals. Now, I'd like to ask you a question. Raise your hand if this is your first IGMUN conference. Wow, that's a lot of you. Well, welcome. Raise your hand if this is your first ever IGMUN conference. Let's give yourselves a round of applause. Well, sounds like there's a lot of unfamiliar new faces here, and I'd like to welcome you and explain that IGMUN is a unique opportunity to discuss international issues across different generations for a truly collaborative and experience. Because not only do we have groups of high schoolers, college students, we have a lot of adults and young professionals here as well. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker. She is, that's me. The next speaker is Dorothy Buchanan Wilson, and she is the International President of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority. So, unfortunately, Dorothy could not be here today, so we have a video of her.
So let our voice be heard with the leaders in
Greetings. I am Dorothy Buchanan Wilson, International President of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Welcome to our biennial intergenerational model UN conference. Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated is a global organization of over 283,000 college-trained members bound by the bonds of sisterhood and empowered by a commitment to unselfish community service that is both domestic and international in scope. It is that global scope that led us to form a partnership with the UNA USA in 2014 with the goal of implementing programs to expose young people to the vital work of this organization. This year's conference is being hosted at UC Berkeley and will include 2 days of activities. Day 1 includes meetings and discussions with members of other organizations, including high school students from Alpha Kappa Alpha's signature enrichment program, Ascend. These individuals will participate in conversations on global issues and the opportunity to become global citizens while being informed about global issues impacting different generational levels. On our second day, there will be a joint meeting between Alpha Kappa Alpha chapter leaders and leaders of the United Nations Association to discuss the partnership between the 2 organizations. As you can see, we have an exciting 2 days planned, and we are looking forward to an interactive and informative conference. From a global perspective, the members of Alpha Kappa Alpha remain committed to continue strong programming between the sorority and the UNA USA.
Thank you, Dorothy. Next, I'd like to introduce Herb Verstock, who is the Northern California United Nations Association Division President. Let's give him a hand.
Thanks, Megan, and welcome everybody on behalf of the 12 chapters of the United Nations Association in Northern California. The United Nations Association, many of you don't know about it. There's some references on the webpage, but let me just mention There are about 100 countries that have United Nations associations. Why? Because the world needs constituents, civil society, and organizations and NGOs everywhere in the world to be supporters and advocates for a better United Nations so that it can fulfill the dreams and the aspirations that went into the making of the United Nations after the Second World War. In the United States, the United Nations Association has about 150 chapters. 25 of them, 30 of them are on campuses, including one on this campus. Our Northern California division, which is the area where almost all of you come from, has 12 chapters. And we would invite all of you who are not yet members of those chapters to please join, to help add your voice, to get involved in the educational and advocacy activities that help to strengthen the American constituent base to support the United Nations. So we have local educational programs, awareness-raising programs. We'll be celebrating the United Nations Day in about 10 of our chapters all around Northern California next week, as an example. So IGMUN, this group, is an outgrowth of a unique variation on a model United Nations. It is, as you can see, it's intergenerational. That other people will talk about, but we're very, very proud of the history. This is the sixth one, as you know, and hopefully we can continue to be a model for the rest of the country. I hope you'll enjoy the program, and let me say, on behalf of the Northern California Division and our chapters and our division leaders, a special thank you to Rashida, who has, we will acknowledge this many times, who already was planning this event before the last one was even done. And she's already planning the next one and worked endlessly as a leading member of our United Nations Association. Medora, who bridges both. Medora next to who will be introduced momentarily by Megan, but who also bridges both AKA and UNA and help bring us together locally. Megan, our chair, who is Secretary General, and of course, our friends who have come from around the country from the UNA, will be meeting them later. But I wish you well. I hope you will take up the challenge to both learn about the United Nations, about the United Nations Association, and to feel that you are part of a process of carrying the torch to the next generations of leaders who make the world better. Thank you.
Thank you, Herb. Now I'd like to invite Madeline Newby, who is the Alpha Nu Omega President of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority.
Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you so much for having us here today. Alpha Nu Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority is located here in Berkeley, Richmond, Oakland. So my sorority sisters and I are thrilled to have been invited to be a part of this conference and to actually help co-host the conference. This is the first time a chapter is co-hosting the intergenerational conference, and I feel like I've been missing out on something. I've been missing out. So I'm super excited to be here today, very excited to learn and to figure out how this process works. We hope this will be one of many opportunities for us to work together, and I hope you're as excited as we are, and we're going to get the show on the road. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Madeline. At this time, I'd like to, as a representative of the United Nations Association, I'd like to extend a thanks to Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, whom without we could not have this conference. So let's give them a round of applause. Moving forward, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, who is our keynote speaker for today. His name is Jackson Dugan, and he was the former U.S. Youth Observer to the United Nations. So let's hear about his experience.
Thank you, Megan. It's very nice to be here. I flew down from Portland, Oregon last night, and just ran over on parts and really grabbed the control. So my name is Jackson Dugan, and this is actually my first UN conference. So I am a newbie. And I'll talk a little bit about my journey, how I approached the United Nations, my background, because it's a little non-traditional in terms of what you come across with the UN, in terms of policy gurus, and then hopefully impart some parting words and some wisdom that you can all take with you for later today. So I come from a background in science, and I majored in biology and biochemistry at college. I graduated from Oregon State University 3 years ago. I did not major in political science. I did not major in international relations. But it was an integral part of my interest. And so if you're all studying or if you're all aspiring to a certain pedestal or a certain trajectory or a certain degree, don't limit yourself by what you think you need to have on paper. One thing that my background really afforded me was the leverage to approach policy discussions from a quantitative framework and to say, look, I bring something new to the table. So in your own paths, find something new to bring to the discussion. There are going to be a lot of policymakers and a lot of policy wonks. What can we bring new to the discussion that is really novel and inspirational? So I graduated from college 3 years ago, and I moved to Dublin, Ireland. I've never been there, I didn't know anyone, I just moved. And I encourage you all to take similar risks in your life, because if you never take the shot, you're most likely never going to make it. So I moved to Dublin. I'd never been there, I didn't know anyone, and it was a really transformative experience. So look for those when you're trying to create lives of meaning or trying to put yourself in situations where you know you'll grow as an individual. I didn't have an offer of employment, I found a job, I worked there for a year, and I came back because they denied my visa for a second year. So it was either come back or it was deportation. So I came back, and while I was in Dublin, I noticed this opportunity with the State Department and UNA to apply for this over-the-top position as U.S. Youth Observer to the United Nations. And as I said, my first on the UN conference, I'm from the backwoods of Oregon. You know, people don't know UN, you say UN versus, you know, like, it's the backwoods. So it's a different perspective. And I never had the opportunity that you all have today to come here in whatever stage of life you're in and contribute to policy discussions, long policy discussions, to really find something new and to find out what the process is like. I never had that. And so I commend you all for taking the risk and taking the opportunity that afforded itself for you to be here today. So I was in the backwoods, I never heard of, you know, this opportunity, and I figured why not, I'll apply. And the essay prompt during my application period was, what is the largest detriment or risk to global security worldwide? And I want you all to think about that question. What do you consider the largest risk to global security worldwide? For me, it was minority exclusion from the political process. As someone who identifies in the LGBT spectrum, within the LGBT community, from the backwoods of Oregon, you know, that was a difficult situation to grow up in, and it formed how I approach problems and how I approach the world. So think about your experiences, and I really want to impress upon you what new can you bring to the table, what new perspective. There's a lot of diversity in this room. There's a lot more diversity in this room than there is in Oregon sometimes. So, you know, embrace that, embrace the different identities that you bring to the table because they're all valid. So I applied for this position, went through the interview process, I got an email and a phone call, and then I was off, and I got to travel the world. I got to serve as a liaison between people at the United Nations and other youth delegates and American youth. And it was a really transformative experience. I went to Azerbaijan, I went to Geneva, I went to Paris, I was in New York a ton. So I would encourage you all to apply for this position if you're under the age of 25 or the age of 18. You know, if you're in that sweet spot, apply for the U.S. Youth Observer position to the United Nations and see where it can take you. And don't be afraid to bring something novel to the discussion. I know we're running short on time, but I just want to impart some advice or some lessons that I think have served me well in my trajectory. One is success is best measured by answering the following question. Did I achieve my goals? Use your goals as a means of crafting success. As As you enter university, if your goal is to graduate in 4 years and you graduate in 4 years, you've been successful. If your goal is to have a job after 4 years, that's a very different measure of success. So use your goals as a means of practical success. The next piece of advice I have is do not seek to become a jack of all trades and a master of none. Specialize in a certain area. It's good to have breadth, but it's also good to have depth, so that you can come to this discussion and bring something meaningful that no one else can offer. The third piece of advice, and I'm almost done, is do not isolate yourself behind books and screens. And I know as a millennial, that's very easy to do. I'm doing this and I have notes written on my phone. Okay, I understand that. It's very difficult to do. But I heard George Papandreou, the former Prime Minister of Greece, speak on the Greek roots of the word idiot. And it is a person who has receded from political life or social life. I urge you all not to become idiots and to hide behind screens and books. Fourth, I have 5 pieces of advice. Fourth, rapid change is not a catalyst for sustainable change. Rapid change is not a catalyst for sustainable change. Look at the United Nations. It's a process. Democracy is a process. So if you're looking for rapid change in your discussions, it's not going to be sustainable. Look at the Egyptian revolution with Mohammed Morsi. Research that it was very rapid, very unsustainable. And the last piece of advice goes with the fourth: take your time to develop your interests. As maturing individuals, you're never done growing, and you're never done maturing. And there's always something new to learn, and there's always something new to bring to the table, and there are always new perspectives developing. So I want to thank everyone for taking the opportunity to come here today. I also want to thank Megan and Rashida for having me here today. It's been a pleasure and an honor. And I'll be here all day. I'll be here all day tomorrow, and I look forward to getting to know each and every one of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jackson. I encourage you all to utilize Jackson as a resource and contact him if you have any questions, wish to speak with him. Next, I'd like to invite our representative from the UN Foundation, Andrea Risotto, to speak about the Adopt the Future campaign. Let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you, everybody, so much for having me. I have to take a picture of all of you because this is so cool. I'm so excited that there's so many newbies here. So I'm not a millennial, I'm Gen X. But I think we need to do it as a selfie. So everyone aim in towards the middle and we'll all take a picture and let's show them a big smile. Put your hands up! Awesome, thank you. It's really exciting that there's so many new people in the room. My name is Andrea Risotto. I'm so honored to join you today representing the United Nations Foundation and the United Nations Association of the United States of America, or UNA-USA for short. I'm here to talk to you today about what many people call the greatest humanitarian crisis of our time, the plight of refugees around the world. For those of you who are not familiar with UNA-USA, I know there's a lot of very active members in this room, but it is a nationwide network of 150 community and campus chapters across the country, a grassroots movement of more than 20,000 members who are dedicated to informing, inspiring, and mobilizing Americans on behalf of the United Nations. I come to you from Washington, D.C., where I live and work, where we're constantly working with our nation's leaders to share the great work of the UN, no matter which party is in power in the White House, the Senate, or the House of Representatives. Our mission is to make sure that the United States has a strong partnership with the United Nations. But I know that a lot of the most important work happens in rooms like these. It's our local communities across the country, our UNA-USA chapters, AKA, that mobilize communities to work in partnership with the UN and UN agencies. So first, please accept my thanks and the gratitude of my colleagues in New York and Washington for being here today and all the great work that you're doing on behalf of the UN. This talk comes at a very consequential moment in time. if you haven't seen the statistics, they are striking and they're heartbreaking. There are currently 65 million people displaced from their homes around the world. That's the highest figure ever recorded. More people than lived in the United Kingdom or in Canada, Australia, and New Zealand combined. 1 out of every 113 people on the planet is uprooted. And the problem is only getting more severe. Every day last year, 34,000 people had to flee their homes. That's equivalent to 24 people every minute, which is faster than an adult breathes. 51% of all refugees are children. Many are separated from their parents or traveling alone. Women and children make up 80% of all refugees. I know that many of you have seen the pictures of young refugees on social media. One of the most shared images was of Amr Dagnish, a 5-year-old Syrian boy who was sitting in an ambulance covered in dust and blood with dazed. Images like those are so important because they remind us that this is a crisis about real people. Children, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, whose lives and futures have been disrupted in the most violent and terrifying way. Most of the people who have been displaced from their homes are being persecuted for one of 5 reasons: race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or because they're part of a particular social group, perhaps, for example, they're LGBTQ. They flee because they need to escape violence and harm. 41 million of them, about 63%, are displaced within their own countries, which means they've had to leave their homes, but they're still within national borders. That's called being internally displaced, and it's a trend that's been on an upward swing since 2003. And let's not forget natural disasters, including those associated with the effects of a changing climate, like tsunamis. They displaced around 19.2 million people just last year. A refugee is defined as someone who is forced to leave their own country. There are currently 21 million refugees around the world. Over half of all refugees come from 3 countries: Syria, Afghanistan, and Somalia. Turkey is currently hosting the most refugees of any nation in the world, about 2.7 million people, mostly from Syria. The other top refugee hosting countries are Pakistan, Lebanon, Iran, Ethiopia, and Jordan. The largest per capita country hosting refugees is Lebanon, which is about the size of Connecticut and hosting over 1 million Syrians. The majority of uprooted people today do not live in camps. It's much more common for them to be displaced in a large urban city or other settlement. And another 3 million people are abroad and seeking asylum, which means that their refugee claims are still pending. In case you're wondering, the number of refugees accepted into the US every year is determined by the president. There are various factors that affect the president's decision, including the resources available to appropriately screen and relocate displaced people. You may have seen an announcement in mid-September from President Obama that he has decided for fiscal year 2017, the US will increase the number of refugees accepted into the country to 110,000. That's an increase from 85,000 in fiscal year 2016 and from 70,000 in each of the previous 3 years. Most of these refugees are referred to the US by the UN Refugee Agency because they're particularly vulnerable in their host country. The US then determines which refugees it will accept for admission and conducts a thorough security screening, which takes about 18 months to complete. Once you do the math, it's pretty easy to see that while resettling refugees and granting asylum are critical ways to offer protection for those at risk, it is not helping everyone who needs it. The reality for many refugees is that they wait for years or decades for a solution. Over 1/3 of all refugees have been in exile for at least 5 years. The average length of time a person is displaced is 17 years, and that amount of time is getting longer. So before we discuss possible solutions and how you can help, it's important to understand how we arrived at this moment. Simply put, new crises are breaking out around the world, and old ones have not gone away. The media and the public are able to turn away their attention from the lingering crises, but the UN Refugee Agency and its partners remain on the ground. Between dealing with the decades-old crises and the new emergencies, their budgets and resources are beyond stretched. In the past 6 years, at least 15 conflicts have erupted or reignited, including 8 in Africa, 3 in the Middle East, 3 in Asia, and 1 in Europe, Ukraine. Those countries need help. Donors need to continue to provide money for aid, and we need to seek out new and innovative financing mechanisms. Host countries need safe and legal means for refugees to enter their countries and move if necessary. And at the same time, it's really important to remember that people who seek irregular means to flee to safety are not criminals. Just like Jews fleeing Nazi Germany, who were aided by an underground network of people who risked their lives by providing false documents or other assistance, today's refugees often turn to smugglers in order to seek refuge. We know that refugees can go on to accomplish great things if given opportunities. Just consider some of the people who were once refugees: Madeleine Albright, Henry Kissinger, Sigmund Freud, Albert Einstein, Victor Hugo, and even Freddie Mercury. So what can you do? I know this is a room full of people who are really passionate, very globally minded Americans. When we consider the facts and figures and that more than half of all refugees are children, it is easy to feel very overwhelmed. These are children who are caught up in conflict or disaster, children who just want a chance at a normal life, to be able to go to school and learn. The UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR, is working to prevent a lost generation by educating refugee children in camps and other settings around the world. But they need our help. So in response to this call, UNA USA has partnered with UNHCR to launch the Adopt a Future initiative, which links Americans directly to students in schools around the world. I'm so happy to see on the agenda that there's a backpack drive after the closing ceremony. This campaign enables partners and supporters to raise funds to support refugee education worldwide or to build a classroom for a specific refugee-serving school. For $250, a partner or supporter can provide school uniforms and supplies to enable 10 students to enroll in school. Funds raised equip students in UNHCR-supported schools all around the world. And then for $30,000, which I'm already hearing that there's a support for here in Northern California to raise the big funds, a partner or supporter can provide a new classroom at a refugee-serving school to meet the needs of at least 40 children for 10 years. For the first year of the program, 2017, we will focus on supporting schools in 2 UNHCR camps in Kenya. It's also important to let your members of Congress know that refugees and the work the UN does to support people fleeing war and persecution are important to you. Because of advocacy efforts like these and the people in this room, I'm happy to say that the US has fully funded the UN for the last 8 years running. But that funding for refugees and war is perpetually at risk. With the new administration just a few months away, we can't take any chances. This is particularly important because the UN Refugee Agency only receives about 3% of its budget from the UN. The rest is provided through voluntary contribution. So with that, I know we're over our time. I just wanted to close by thanking you all for having me here on behalf of UNA USA. If you're not yet a member, I encourage you to go to the website, learn more, unausa.org. Thank you all, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Andrea. I'd like to, she mentioned this, but I'd like to point attention that we do have a refugee backpack initiative that will occur during closing ceremonies. And what this initiative will be is that we will be forming an assembly line and have multiple stations where we will be stuffing these backpacks full of school supplies, and as many as we can. I think we have about 500 backpacks, and we can't do it without your help. So we'd love for you to be involved with this backpack initiative. And these backpacks, once completed, will be sent to refugees within the United States setting. So moving on, related to the selfie that we took earlier, if you are going to be taking pictures throughout the conference, please use the hashtag UNA IGMUN so that everywhere across the world, all the UNA USA chapters, that is an international organization, by the way, will see the wonderful work that you will do here. So one of the special things we have, and thank you for bearing with us, we're almost done with all these speeches, and we're going to get you guys all to debate soon. But first, I'd like to introduce all these special policy advisors we've invited here today. And no other conference does this. What we do is we reach out to experts that are knowledgeable in their field, invite them to come so that they can provide information, and you can, as delegates, utilize them as a resource within committee. So, once I call your name, special policy advisors, I'd like for you to stand and be recognized. So, for the committee UNICEF, we have Chandi Jain. Chandi Jain. For UN Women, we have Karen Mulhauser. For UN Water, we have Aziz Akbar. Aziz is actually a representative. He's running to be the representative for the Alameda County Water District for the Tri-County area, so very relevant in this field for the UN Water Committee. Next, we have for IEA, Amr Khan. FPO, we have Joshua Drews. For Bearstock, our very own president. For UNHRC, we have Jackson Dugan. UN Habitat, we have Albert Saloza. For UNEP, we have Sandra Williams. For IMO, we have Andrea Risotto. And for Security Council, we have Kate Fisher. Alright, so that's our special policy advisors, and last but not least, our head chairs. So, head chairs, once I call your name, please stand and be recognized. And delegates, please try to remember who your chair is, because after the opening ceremony, I will be dismissing you by committee. So try to keep in mind who your head chair is. They will have signs in case you forget. And once I dismiss you by committee, you'll be waiting outside in the lobby area, either downstairs in the foyer or outside. So just your chairs will wait a few minutes for everyone to gather, and then we'll all leave. So FAO, we have Deepak Kumar. For WHO, we have Brendan O'Brien. For UNICEF, we have Shamali Joshi. For UN Women, we have Natalie Gates. For UN Water, we have Aditya Mistry. IEA, we have Mohammed Bashir. For ILO, we have Jafari Leaks. For the World Bank Committee, we have Nair Wang. For the UNHRC Committee, we have Calvin Sang. For UN Habitat, we have Eugene Chong. For UNEP, we have RJ Johnson. And for Security Council, we have Bryce Boyd. And if you're in the International Maritime Organization, you have me. Yay! Okay, so real quickly, there has been one slight schedule change for committee rooms. So if you are in the World Health Organization or UN Water Committee, I repeat, World Health Organization or UN Water Committee, your new committee rooms are UN Water will be Dwanell 88. UN Water, Dwanell 88. And for World Health, you'll be in the Martin Luther King building, which is this building, in the Poly East room. Okay? So basically, those two committees just got switched due to the sizes. So we want to better accompany you guys instead of cramming you onto small classes. Okay, so if you look at the schedule, we have committee session 1, which is, we're a little bit late, but that's okay. Lunch is from 12:30 to 1:30, and that will be here in the MLK building. So your chair will dismiss you and leave you here, as well as take you back. So they're going to have the signs once again. We're going to be calling for dismissal and going back to the committee. Then we're going to have committee session 2. Advisors and head coaches, please attend the meeting from 3 to 4 in the Tilton room, which is the 5th floor of this building. And then, at last but not least, we'll have a closing ceremony in the Baghdad Refugee Initiative here. So without further ado, the SG smiles upon a motion to open the conference. Do I have a motion? Anybody? I saw a hand over there. That is in order. All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed? I now declare IGMUN 2016 open. Please wait for your committee to be released and announced. We're going to do this in an orderly fashion. So that So, World Health Organization, I'm sorry, my mistake. UN Water, please follow Aditya out the door. Please grab all your stuff. There is going to be a committee room here, so do not leave anything. Okay, FAO, please follow Deepak, your chair, and leave. UN Women, you are now dismissed. Please follow your chair now. IEA, please follow Mohammed. He will lead you to your company. For ILO, please follow Jafari to your room. For World Bank Committee, please follow your chair now, you're outside. For UN Habitat, please follow Eugene. Absolutely. For IMO, please meet me outside. There should be someone with a second. I will meet you out shortly. UNICEF, please follow your chair outside. UNICEF, Sean, please over here. For World Health Organization, follow your chair first. UNHRC, please follow Calvin. For UNEP, please follow RJ. And last but not least, if you're in the Security Council, your head chair Bryce will take you. Thank you, everybody.
World Health. World Health Organization. That's your help, yeah.
Hey guys, hi. The rest of my day, that's Robert.
Well, I'm available. I'm the president of the chapter for UNA. So right now I'm just saying, but
Is this the computer that's connected to that? To the PowerPoint?
Oh no, it's back there.
Oh, fun. Okay.
Is that Matt right here?
How are you? Lenore, do you need help with anything? I'm signed up to volunteer today and just don't have much, but I don't have anything on it. Let's do that.